But I guess we'll start off with the sad news from this week. Rush Limbaugh passed away. I believe he was 70 years old. He was dealing with cancer. What was the?
It was lung cancer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Lung cancer. So that's sad to hear. I had regrettably not listened to him too much. I tended to gravitate towards Mark Levin, but will you say you listen to him on occasion?
Yes. So, especially when I was a little kid, my dad's a landscaper, so we would go around, especially when I was in kindergarten between different jobs, and I'd ride, 12 to 3 was his hour. And, we'd always say, hey, what's Rush up to? And, I didn't listen to him a ton, but when I did, I loved it. I just knew you were listening to an icon. He had a way about him. No disrespect to the other radio guys out there, but Rush was the man, and it's life. People go on, but it's really sad. It's definitely an icon, and he really paved a lot of the way for a lot of more right-leaning media that we see today. Without him, I doubt we would have, your favorite podcast, your favorite radio show host, maybe even some of your favorite TV hosts.
Yeah, he kind of. Admittedly, I don't know a whole lot about him, but from what I understand, he was kind of a trailblazer of right-wing talk radio, right?
Yes. I think he started back in the 80s and went through the 90s. That's when my dad really listened to him a ton, was in the 90s. And, we had books in our house from Rush Limbaugh written back in the 90s. And I think this is where he really made his heyday. But, he was going strong even until the end, even after cancer. It wasn't like he made some hit album 30 years ago. And, he was just as relevant in 2020 as he was in 1995. And it's, we think of radio as outdated, but it's not. And Rush Limbaugh is a prime example of that.
Yeah, it's fascinating how radio is like one of the few media genres that conservatives seem to, I guess, dominate or have a majority, I don't want to say stakehold, but a very comfortable position in. Because, obviously in print journalism, newspapers tend to lean liberal. When you look at, TV journalism, you've got Fox News, but that's basically it for conservatives. But for talk radio, it seems to skew right over the other formats. Have you ever read why that is? Because it's always been, I've always been curious about that, but I've never actually sat down and researched it.
I have not read why, so this is just me spitballing here, but I've got 3 sort of theories I'll throw out there. Mm-hmm. One is, especially when things sort of first came on, conservatives tend to be slower to integrate technology. And so when all this is hypothesis because I was born in 1997, but I'm guessing the conservatives of the older day were probably more prone to listen to radio as opposed to TV. And that's one thing. And rural access, conservatives, more rural areas, not as much as nowadays, but, there wasn't, TV for a long time. Just like there wasn't electricity for a good while after electricity. I think the New Deal brought electricity to the South. I think another thing is that you can listen to it while you're working. Not to say that the left doesn't work, but I just noticed a lot of the people that I knew that listened to it, they would listen to it, during the lunch break or as they were doing their job. They have a radio playing. Maybe they're in a car shop and they have it on loud and they'd be in there, doing mechanic stuff and listen at the same time. I also think that decentralization, because TV is a national affair. Other than, your local news station, Fox News is broadcasting the same thing to everybody from Washington to Maine to California to Florida. Radio has I'm no technical expert. My guess is a 50, 100-mile radius. So you really provide a platform for people to talk about local issues and local matters. And a lot of conservative philosophy is built on decentralization and local affairs. I think that's why it really took hold.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about the localization. And I guess tying in with that, when it comes to running a TV network, a TV show, that takes a lot of personnel, a lot of money, capital. But a radio show, literally one person could run it if they wanted to. And so it doesn't take the kind of backing that would be required from it, a a company or corporation that's more likely to play things safe and not support quote unquote fringe ideas. I never thought about that before. That's a good point. Wood, I don't want to leave you out. I know we're having to. You can't see us obviously because we're on radio, but Wood is having to talk from the producer booth since we can only have 2 people in the main talk booth with COVID regulations. But we can hear and see Wood through the glass.
Yes, I'm still in here. I'm just kind of doing more of the back end stuff than I normally would do, given that there's 3 of us and I chose to be back here. So I'm still part of the show.
Indeed. So any thoughts on the whole radio situation?
I mean, I guess you kind of covered it. I didn't really listen to Rush Limbaugh a whole lot besides whatever clips they may play on Fox News, or I think used to when Bill O'Reilly was on there, he'd have Rush on sometimes. So that was about the limit of my exposure to Rush Limbaugh. Or I think sometimes he'd come on Hannity's show sometimes. That was about it. But he always seemed like he was a force of nature within the conservative radio landscape.
I wonder why he wasn't on Sirius XM. That's odd.
I don't know.
All right, so transitioning to, I guess, our commonality, how we met law school. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to, check in, and we could kind of talk about what it's been like so far, because I feel like we're deep enough in where we can have a little bit of perspective on how it was starting out and how it's compared to undergrad. So we've both been at it for about a semester and a half so far. I guess looking back on the first semester, now that it's kind of behind us, how was it? What do you think of it? How did it compare to undergrad? Thoughts?
So this is...
Now, just like to... probably this up, friend. You went to undergrad at Clemson, right?
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Yes. It's just a whole different world. Mm-hmm. The material is hard, but it's not impossible. It's not like it's astrophysics. I was horrible at algebra. This is not like that. It's more of... One issue is we had it during the COVID experience, and that's really impossible to compare with everything else.
That's true.
Law school has a really good way of humbling you because, when I came in, I was a student sports journalist at Clemson, and so I thought I kind of knew how to write. And then you get here and you realize, wow, there's a lot of things that I thought I knew how to do that, I really need to learn how to do. It's a whole different way of thinking, a whole different way of writing, a whole different perspective on the world. You don't see as many clear-cut answers as you did before you came. It's generally a good experience. I like it, but I'd say the hardest part is the stress that's sort of designed to test you mentally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talk about there's not many as clearly defined answers. That's one of the biggest things for me, adjustments coming in. You have the impression that the law is the law, and all you're doing is saying, well, he's either guilty or he's not guilty. But once you get into law school, you realize there's so many shades of, levels to all this. And sometimes there's no clear-cut answer. There's different ideas of how to approach a situation, but there's no, a right way and a wrong way to do it. There's just competing ideologies. And that was something that I didn't anticipate, but it's been interesting to grapple with.
Mm-hmm. And what's also interesting is you would think that you expect in constitutional law, something highly politicized, that there would be different, sets of opinions and you'd have more of the borderlines. But even in things that don't seem political or controversial, there's lots of different ways on how to do things. If we're talking about suing people, I don't know if that's a great example, but, what should laws regarding tenants and landlords be? There's... I don't think of a better way to put it.
There's different, basically the difference between the different approaches is how they weigh the interests of different parties, I guess you could say.
Yes.
Would that be phrasing it right?
Yes, and it's everywhere. It's not just in the things that you read about in the news. It's in the things that, you may never come across as a citizen in everyday life, but you look at it and you've got people battling over, what should we do in this really niche area of the law? And you've got, well, no, I want this, and no, I want this. And it's, there's way less black and white than you would think.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, you talk about you are bad at algebra, and this isn't like that, with the exception of this property stuff that we waded through like the past week. That had some algebraic qualities to it.
Oh, goodness. It's I thought I came to law school to get away from math, except for statistics. Statistics is great. Shout out to Professor Larson back at Greenville Tech. But you go into contracts and then you're trying to figure out how to calculate damages, and you're like, well, I came here to get away from numbers, and Professor Kuhn is teaching us how to calculate damage. What is this? And you need to go to property and okay, I've got the hang of this. This is conceptual, and then you get into tracking who owns what, when, where, and why, and you're like, well, I enjoyed logic games on the LSAP. This is something else. Goodness.
Yeah. Before law school, you kind of think of property as, okay, I own it, and then I can give it to someone, or I could borrow on it. But then we started learning about fee simples and fee tails, and oh my goodness, just the can of worms of all the things that can arise, life estates, all the things that can arise out of different ways to apportion property. And of course, it varies per state, which complicates things even further. Man.
That's one thing that sort of, I guess it's sort of soapbox. One thing that sort of bothers me about the law is how inaccessible it is to your average person, or your below average or above average, or really people not trained in it. We live, I guess the more you dig in, the more you see it is, we live our lives every day, but we don't know the rules we're governed by. Not just talking about the sheer amount of rules, of which there's a ton, just like any federal regulations, but just terms like fee simple. I remember I was talking to my parents about property yesterday, and they said, yeah, so when we did something with one of our properties, they're like, well, this is a fee simple, and they didn't have a clue what it meant at the time, and it we operate under a system that we don't know the rules to, and it sort of bothers me because we can't plan our actions around the rules.
Yeah, just to cut in real quick, I remember the legal career was one of those. A guy said it was one of those careers that had ingeniously created its own terms and specialty terms within itself to make it inaccessible to others. But I get your point.
Yeah, and basically everyone operates on what their idea of the law is, but I guess even attorneys themselves grapple with some areas of the law when it comes to exactly what certain statutes mean or how it'll be interpreted by courts, because not everything has been resolved judicially. There's still gray area out there that remains to be 100% resolved. So that's been something fascinating. We are at 16 minutes in. Just a reminder, this is WUOG 90.5 FM Athens. The views expressed are those of myself, Will, and Wood. They do not represent those of the station or the University of Georgia. Just getting that out there. So out of the courses we've taken so far, we've taken torts, contracts. I'm excluding the legal writing stuff. I'm just looking at doctrinal. So torts, contracts, property, constitutional law, civil procedure, and criminal law. Out of those so far, what do you like best?
I have two answers to this. As far as the class itself and the substance of it, I really like civil procedure because it's the most black and white class. There's rules. You have a manual. It's very technical. It's about, the first part of the class is about how to get people in court to sue them, because it's not just simple as I want to sue them, I sue them. And the second half of the course is the process of a lawsuit, everything from the very beginning of it to the very end of it. And so that was really informative, partially because I don't have any lawyers in my family or anything, so I didn't know a lot of this stuff. And you're like, wow, this is pretty neat. And secondly, because I like that there's more clear answers. And also, shout out to Professor Shipley. I love you. You're the best. As far as ideologically, though, I like the concept of contract law because not all the times, but in many ways, you can make your own terms that you want to be governed by. There are exceptions to this, but it's not like you're just governed by whatever the government says or governed by whatever, if you and I want to enter a contract, we have a lot more latitude than in other areas of the law.
Yeah, and for those listening, I personally think Will is crazy for liking civil procedure that much because civil procedure, oh my goodness, he's right. The black and white nature in a lot of the stuff you just have to memorize. It's not like contracts where things just seem fair and intuitive. So I can see where you're coming from, but wow, it's definitely one of those things I respectfully disagree with.
Yeah, and I'm one of the few people that likes the MLS salary cap system and all the exceptions and the senior.
Wait, the what system?
MLS. Wood, do you follow much Major League Soccer?
I'm starting to try to get into it. It's still taking me a bit.
Oh, y'all referencing sports gibberish. Okay, continue.
Yeah,
No, it's not gibberish. You just once you're into it, it's like legal. It's just like back and forth the language, the lingo. You just have to learn it.
Yes, and so it's a civil procedure reminds me a lot of the Major League Soccer rules and salary cap because it's so different from every other soccer league in the world. People go, "Oh, I hate this. It's complicated. Why can't we just pay the players whatever they want?" But I like it because it's a structure that creates parity, and there's a lot of strategy involved in maneuvering around the rules. And I feel that civil procedure is very much the same way, maneuvering around the rules in search of an upper hand.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. I can see where you're coming from. For me, I'd have to say my favorite is probably. I might have to go with contracts because I just enjoyed the aspects of it, and I don't know, it just appealed to me. Although I also am enjoying property. I'm enjoying it less over the past week when we've gotten into the really complicated estate allocation problems. But still, I do like property and I like contracts. So those are my favorites so far. I think we'll go to a quick music break. And unless, Wood, do you have anything to add before we go?
Not really. No, as a pre-law currently, there's not a whole lot I can add from the outside point of view, I feel like.
Yes, Wood.
It sounds very complicated.
Wood will be joining the round table in the fall because he got accepted to Mercer. Congratulations. Yep. Waiting to hear from UGA, but either way, he's definitely going to law school. So we'll definitely have to have a round table in the fall where we can all discuss it on an equal footing. And while Will and I laugh at Wood's struggles during 1L.
Yes, but he's getting a laugh right now.
Yes.
Yes, how the turntables will be later.
How the turntables. All right, we'll go to a quick music break. When we come back, we'll probably talk about some sports. And also, I want to address Bitcoin because that's been getting interesting. So this is Pogo, our resident favorite artist. This piece coming up is a demo for a basketball company he was working on. And he wound up liking the piece so much that he withdrew it from the work he was giving to the client because he wanted to be able to post it in his private album that he releases himself. So this is What It Do.
It's the story of, and like they said, enjoy this moment. Let's make this thing work out. Everybody deserves it. Let's go out and win ball games.
we are back. This is Say What You Will on WOG 90.5 FM. I'm Kason Smith, joined by Wood Smith and our guest, William Corbin. All right. Now we're going to talk about some sports. When I say we, I mean Will and Wood, because I don't follow it too much, going to be honest. I keep up with the dogs, but that's about it. So you'll take it away.
I don't really think you can say you keep up with the dogs, because I remember you went to the Auburn game this past season, and then you texted me, who's the starting quarterback for UGA?
That was a fair question this season, though. I
yes.
couldn't keep up.
True.
3, 4,
Thank you,
Mathis,
Will.
Bennett, JT Daniels.
Thank you.
And I don't even keep up with Georgia, and that was a hard question.
Thank you. Take that, Wood.
Okay, yeah, I see. You got bailed out by this one season. But yeah, so I guess it's kind of a good point to start out on is the next season for Clemson and Georgia start at the same game. We're facing each other for the season opener of 2021 in Charlotte, I believe. Neutral site game. So who do you have as kind of the favorite, Will?
Well, I'm biased. Clemson. It would be hard for me to pick against Clemson at this point, really, with anybody, especially with Georgia. I know I kind of like to antagonize my friends that are Georgia fans because don't come up in big games. Georgia's cursed in sports. Clemson's done really well, so I think it's just going to be more of the same. Our defense has struggled against really good teams, but I don't know if Georgia's. It's too early to say what's going to happen, but I'm taking Clemson.
Yeah, I think it'll be a very competitive game. Either way, like you said, I'm kind of biased the same way, so I kind of picked the dogs to go over the Tigers. But I'm kind of interested with Trevor Lawrence out of the way that maybe this is kind of the moment UGA can kind of get on the good foot coming into this season. Because DJ Ungulalele, I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly. I've made sure to listen to it enough, but he did pretty good as a freshman when Trevor Lawrence was out for COVID for 2 games, I believe it was. Boston College had won that game and then had a shootout loss to Notre Dame. So that's some good experience on his belt, but is he a good enough player where he can fill the shoes of Trevor Lawrence?
As much as people... Depends on how you define fill the shoes of, because, it's... Just like you're not going to fill the shoes of Deshaun Watson, then you have Trevor Lawrence. It's not going to be the same player.
True.
It's going to be just as good, but different. I think DJ's the same way. I think there's going to be very little drop-off. You saw this year, honestly, DJ was not why Clemson lost the Notre Dame game. They had some injuries on defense and some other stuff that happened that was more the product than DJ. DJ put up, to the extent that quarterback controls an offense, like 40-something points.
It was an amazing performance for a freshman against a team like this past Notre Dame team was. So
yes. You think, okay, well, you're not going to see a Taj Boyd again for a while. Then you get Deshaun Watson. And you're like, well, you're not going to see Deshaun Watson again. Well, you get Trevor Lawrence. And you're not going to see a Trevor Lawrence type again. And, the book is far from over on DJ's career. But DJ's, looking like he's going to be every bit as good as the past 2 or 3 quarterbacks Clemson has had. So I don't see... If Clemson drops off, I don't think it's because of their quarterback play. So I think it's just... a wish from rival fans, honestly.
Yeah, I always knew that the quarterback play was important, but I never really knew it was as important as as Georgia this past season with their quarterback troubles. We're going through just by everyone, and some people were saying they would suit up to try to help with the quarterback situation, but hopefully we finally figured that out, and I can't wait for the 2021 season start. So.
I do want to defend y'all's quarterbacks. To be fair, I did not watch a ton of them play. I've just watched bits and pieces. This is the Georgia radio station. But, we talk about how we can step in there and play quarterback. And sure, Nathan Peterman had like the worst playoff game ever in NFL history. But they're so much better than the rest of us to even get to that point. If you and I were out there, we would get destroyed. They would make us look like, silly 5th graders. These are really talented guys we're talking about. They're just not as talented as the guys next to them.
Yeah, and when Stetson Bennett was in under center, he's great. He could make those throws, kind of more of a gunslinger attitude. It was just that height that got to him. So it's great play from all of them. It's just like you said, we say we could do that, but I mean, if you're actually under center, it's going to be a whole lot different once you're out there on the field facing these 200, 300-pound guys running at you.
Especially, I remember when I covered Clemson football at Clemson, these guys were, not all of them, but, especially the guys that graduated last year, a lot of them were my classmates. And, you don't think, when they're on TV, they don't seem that big. They're like, okay, yeah, they're just normal dudes. But, when you have class with them or something and they're coming in and, they're completely jacked, like muscled up, or they're like 300-plus pounds, you're like, holy cow. I mean, they really are a different level of athlete, and they have a different level of dedication and training to get up, 4, 5, 6 in the morning and just go all day. It's, it's not just like, no offense to three of us, but it's not like the three of us out there running around throwing the football. These guys are elite athletes.
Yeah. Being in the ag school, we didn't encounter a whole lot of football players, but we did have a class with Charlie Warner, tight end for Georgia, and got drafted by the 49ers. I remember reading his draft write-up, and it said he was small for a tight end. I remember thinking, that dude was huge when I saw him in class. It was just like, he's a freak of nature almost, how big he is. But then he's on the smaller level. It just makes you... I've never been to an NFL game, but I imagine those guys are just monsters in size, compared to the rest of us.
Definitely. And that's one interesting thing about DJ Uiagalelei is the best I can pronounce it so far, is he's got to the extent that size matters in a quarterback, he's got it. He's, Trevor Lawrence is tall, but he's thinner. He's lanky. If you look at him, you're like, okay, he's kind of wiry. He's not, he's not frail, but, he's not bulked up. Where DJ just looks bulked. It's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something about... That's kind of what makes some players special, is just not necessarily their size, but how quickly they can move as that size. Because I know one example that comes to mind is Julio Jones being so big and so massive, but he can move real quick. So that's always helpful. And, Uiagalelei may surprise us all and be, that fast, mobile quarterback. I know Lawrence can run, but he doesn't necessarily want to run all the time. But Uiagalelei may have more of those legs and move around some more.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to compare him exactly to Cam Newton because that would be sort of disrespectful to Cam Newton, but it reminds you a lot of Cam Newton. Just, we don't know how good it'll be, but you get a lot of those vibes watching him.
Mm-hmm. So, talking about Trevor Lawrence and all that, we all assume that Trevor Lawrence is going to be taken number one by the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have the number one pick because the Jets were so good at losing that they lost the number one pick. I guess you could put it that way. So, you root for the Carolina Panthers, if I remember correctly.
Yes, to the extent that I follow the NFL, I pull for the Panthers, but really it's more my fantasy football team, and it's more of I love the NFL draft. Hadn't got to do as much of it this year because of law school, but love the NFL draft. Love my fantasy team. Keep up with the NFL a decent amount, but I don't watch it on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have an idea of... I've heard talk that Justin Fields is going to be taken second, or now I'm hearing more and more talk about Zach Wilson being taken second, the quarterback out of BYU, Brigham Young University. Do you have an opinion of which one will go first?
If this were last year, I would have an opinion because I was able to watch a lot more college football, but, not to go woes me law school stuff, but, it really is, pick a team, pick a game, circle it, watch that, and then just focus on school stuff, when you really need to. So I wasn't able to watch most of them. I would be curious to see what Zach Wilson's age is because lots of BYU players go on mission. And with quarterbacks playing closer to 40, it doesn't matter as much. But, if Justin Fields is, 22 and Zach Wilson, I don't know, is he, 25 or is he 23? If you got that 4-year age gap difference, is that, does that sway a GM's thinking? I can get 4 extra years if I hit on this guy.
Just a real quick check on his age. He is 21. He'll be 22 by the time the by the time the season starts.
Zach Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, so I stand corrected on that. I probably assumed that he took a mission like many BYU players do. But
yeah, maybe the football players do a little earlier. I'm not entirely sure on those mechanics with BYU. I'm not super familiar with BYU besides, Zach Wilson coming out and making a lot more buzz than people anticipated him to make over this past season. The top 5 quarterbacks have really been a focus for me in this offseason since the Falcons being the Falcons. They lost a lot, got the fourth overall pick, and a lot of people are talking about how maybe this is the time to draft the heir to Matt Ryan. And even though he's got some gas in the tank, we may not be at number 4 this high in such a quarterback-rich draft. Who knows when the next time will be, and we don't necessarily want to hedge our bets on or put our bets on a project quarterback, as some teams tend to do sometimes.
I've got 2 questions. Since you're a Falcons expert, number 1, could you see Matt Ryan going to the New England Patriots in some sort of trade? Given the only reason I say that is they could use a quarterback, and he played up at Boston College, but he's older, he's a veteran. Do you think that's anything more than just speculation?
I've heard a lot of talk about people wanting to trade Matt Ryan for draft picks or maybe another player. Most of the stuff I've heard is not necessarily to the Patriots, though that might be a good fit for him. It's more of going to the 49ers with Kyle Shanahan, which he was the offensive coordinator when we made that Super Bowl run, that very memorable Super Bowl run for everyone involved. Because he likes Shanahan. He worked well in that offense, obviously. So there's a lot of people who they want him to stay in Atlanta, but they know his chances to win a Super Bowl here are diminishing very quickly at his age. And we don't really see him going as far as Tom Brady is in the age bracket. He won't play that long, most likely. So they want him to go ahead and, if they're going to trade him to a team that has that chance to make that Super Bowl run within the next few years. And I believe the Patriots have one of the top open cap space in it, so maybe they can get Ryan. I'm not really sure what they'd give in return for him. Maybe some draft picks over a few years, or.
That's a good question. Sorry to interrupt you here, but we have Matthew Stafford to where the Stafford Goff trade to where the Lions got 2 firsts and a third and Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. And then you have the Eagles trade on the other end of the spectrum. They were hoping to get a Matthew Stafford type deal, but they ended up getting a 3rd-round pick this year, and I want to say a 2nd-round pick that could become a 1st-round pick the next year to the Colts for Carson Wentz. Which side of the spectrum would you see a deal for Matt Ryan? It's okay if you're just simply making a guess. Falling. Would it be closer to a Carson Wentz type deal, or would it be closer to a Matthew Stafford type deal?
I'd say, given his age and all his kind of capabilities and whatnot, he's a great quarterback. I think he's one of the more underrated or underappreciated quarterbacks in the league. It's just kind of the coach and other systems that's making him look bad. But I would say it leans more towards a Carson Wentz type deal, maybe 2 second-round picks instead of a conditional 1st/2nd and then a 3rd-round pick. Maybe you could throw in a 1st-round pick, but I don't really see that with all that. Probably 2 round picks, and maybe one of them is conditional 1st-round pick. But I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to learn all the I guess you call it the pricings of doing draft picks and whatnot in the dealing systems. Looking at the Stafford pick, because as much as I love Ryan, I feel like Stafford is kind of the better quarterback. He's more mobile. He can kind of throw better. He's pretty durable, even though he's had some injuries. There's that clip you see floating around on social media platforms, usually in the NFL circles, of, I believe it's the longest clip in NFL films history, of he gets some sort of tear in his shoulder and continues to play the game to win it with the last few seconds. So Stafford just has, I hate to say it, but the intangibles that are worth those 2 first-round picks, and he's going to still be playing at a high level for a few more years. I believe he's a year or 2 younger than Ryan.
I want to say he's closer. He is. I want to say he's like 30, 32. I don't have that number off the top of my head. Another interesting factor, just as a side note, for the whole Stafford trade was the cap space. You know, they need somebody to take on Jared Goff's contract. So that's sort of why the two first. You know, Matthew Stafford was good, but I don't know if he's two first good. That was also, please take Jared Goff away from us and free us of this cap space. It's really kind of a shame how Stafford's career has gone down because he got stuck on some awful, awful Lions teams. It's something else to watch. Do you think that the Falcons could support a quarterback if they drafted him? Or do you think it'd end up more like a Stafford situation where Stafford would just literally carry them for the next decade if the quarterback turns out to work out?
Yeah. Previously, under Dan Quinn, I guess you call it administration staff, I'd be more of the opinion of he's going to be in kind of Lions scenario where he has to go to the doctor every year to repair his back from carrying the team. But with this new coaching staff and new GM, from what I'm hearing from them, I really like their vision and kind of their attitude so forth. They've already starting to make some roster cuts. That's really tough to try to free up that cap space, which is which is always in the mix when we're talking about the quarterback situation with the Falcons, and that'll be in the mix because this year we're going to be taking a cap space hit, and then next year is when the Julio Jones, Matt Ryan contracts come up or have a little more flexibility, so to speak. But back to that Stafford trade, I'm always amazed how many draft picks the Rams give away or the huge contracts they sign and still somehow make it work every year. I'm still waiting for that tower start to come tumbling down at some point. But McVay seems to keep it together every year somehow.
It's like the inverse. I never watched Moneyball, so this may be a misplaced reference, but it's like inverse Moneyball. You know, instead of playing a bunch of draft picks on rookie contracts, you do the opposite. You let other teams figure out who the busts are and then trade for malcontent stars. And, you know, they like to go to L.A. You know, I'm guessing it's a cool place. And they all work out. And, you know, you just play some Saints style with your salary cap and just ignore it till, you know, we're going to keep this window open as long as we can. And, you know, Jared Goff, and with Jared Goff, they were one game away from a Super Bowl victory. So it's and they were playoffs past couple years. I don't think it's a bad strategy. I don't know if I do it, but it's unorthodox. But it's not like they're picking top 10 every year.
Yeah, it's definitely a system you have to be on top of. I feel like if you mess up or you trip just a little bit, it's all going to start coming unraveled pretty quickly. But I've heard that Stafford's going to be a great fit in the McVay system. Maybe more of a better fit than Goff was. So I'm interested to see how that works out, and maybe they can get back on that stride they were. I believe in 2018 was when they made that Super Bowl run. So can they get quickly back on? Because I know they were doing good initially in this past season, but it kind of went sideways a little bit for different reasons. I believe they were the ones that lost to the Jets.
Yes, I think it was.
Which was astounding, given their previous record up till then.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember everything that happened. If I had to take a guess, you know, I like Jared Goff well enough, but Stafford is an upgrade. So I think I'm not super informed about the particular things in McVay's system, other than he used to run, you know, lots of, you know, 11 personnel, and now he runs 12 personnel. Point aside, I think Stafford will be better simply because he's better, and the scheme fit, you know, it's just a bonus. Mm-hmm. As far as, I honestly forget the question you asked me. I just got.
No, it's fine. Moving on, kind of pulling in some of that Clemson in there, Deshaun Watson and the Texans. Texans are, unfortunately for Watson, the new Browns. I heard someone, I believe it was on Mike Florio's Pro Football Talk. He said they were new Browns. Browns had kind of been in purgatory for 20 years or so, and now, thanks to Bill O'Brien, that's the case in Houston. Do you think Deshaun Watson is going to be able to get out like J.J. Watt is, or are they going to try to keep him there?
It depends, because there's always some level of the team sort of decides, because if worst comes to worst, Deshaun Watson's like, I'm not going to play, and the Texans go fine, who stands down first? I don't know. I think that Deshaun Watson wants out. Like, I doubt he'll play for him again. Just too many different things have happened, and I have no personal opinion of Jack Easterby, but if everything that the media says is going on holds any weight, I just don't see where Deshaun Watson's going to be a Texas again. They're just going to have to make a trade and suit up, or he'll just sit out. But we're getting to an age, it's not like back in the day where the team used to hold all the power, and the player had no power. They used to threaten to send guys to Green Bay if they didn't do what they wanted to at the previous team, and nobody wanted to go to Siberia, the NFL. So now it's kind of different. So I don't know. But we're witnessing a change in how teams relate to players, how much power players have, and I think this will be an interesting precedent. If Deshaun Watson wins in this, other quarterbacks might do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I agree with you. This is kind of the make or break point in the team player relations in the NFL. Can the NFL make more of that NBA switch where the players kind of have more call or make more decisions in where they go and so forth? So it'll be interesting to see. I'm with you on Watson wants out. I don't know if he'll be able to get out just yet. He's going to have to sit down and actually do it, not more of this. His camp says this, Texans camp says this. That back and forth isn't really going to do anything. They need to just kind of sit down and hash it out, basically.
Just a quick PSA. This is WUOG 90.5 FM. The opinions you hear are those of the three of us, Will, Wood, and myself, not those of the station or the university at large.
So, yeah.
I guess that covers for when I talk about how great Clemson is on here.
Exactly.
It's not, for the representative of the University of Georgia saying that.
Yes.
Yes, that is your opinion. We have other
Bad
opinions
opinion
and
at that, but
facts
we'll let it ride.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes. I am a guest, so I will,
First Amendment and all that crap.
Yes. Well, I do appreciate y'all, giving me the courtesy of, talking about Clemson and stuff on a Georgia radio station. I know that's, especially given your listener base, that's, it could be an unpopular decision, but I'm grateful.
Yes, our listener base of 3 people. Yeah, I didn't mean to sabotage y'all's discussion.
No, you're good.
That's all good.
So,
I do want to interject real quick before we run out of time. Bitcoin has been rolling. It's currently sitting at $54,815 per Bitcoin, up from, what was it last time we had the show? It was in the 40s, wasn't it? Or was it late 30s?
Maybe in late 30s. I don't remember exactly.
Skyrocketing up. Again, we could see a correction soon, but I think long term, my opinion still stands that it's going to.
And this is opinion, not investment advice or facts.
Don't follow us for investment advice.
His opinion.
Don't. But in my opinion, it's going to keep climbing up, and I'm starting to think that Max Keesler might be close on the money. He predicted that, not Keesler, it's Keeser, there's no L. But his prediction might be closer than I thought it'd be. He says that Bitcoin will hit 220,000 before the end of 2021. Well, it's currently at basically 55,000, so, he might not be that off.
And it's staying steady these past, once it hit 50,000, 51,000, it stayed fairly steady.
There's been some minor corrections, but there's been no big, crash level correction. Mm-hmm. So, in the past, 4 hours, it's gone from 52,000 to 55. In the past, day, it's gone up $4,000. So, yeah, I'm very happy to see this, because this is just more decentralization, because government can't control Bitcoin, corporations can't control Bitcoin. It's uninflatable.
You're starting to see more acceptance of Bitcoin. I know, I believe it was MasterCard said they'll start taking payments of Bitcoin. And then we talked about Miami wants to start collecting taxes and paying its employees with Bitcoin.
PayPal is looking at incorporating it as well.
Oh, goodness.
So-
This is great news, especially what you said about decentralization, because I think the events of the past, year, 2 years, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you fall on, people's faith in government, and I don't really blame them, is lower than ever before. We're questioning everything about our lives, and so it's kind of natural to question this whole, paper money or, whatever you want to call it, the system we have out here. And so when you have a new alternative that, and maybe subject to interesting phenomenon, but it's not centrally controlled, it's more of a organic thing, I think a lot of people won't get onto it, even people that aren't super technology focused.
Yeah. I think the biggest, the next big thing for Bitcoin is that there's going to be some company that comes up with a way to make it very accessible for people to buy. Because right now you do need a little bit of tech savviness to get it. But once it gets to the point where some company or someone figures out how to make it very easy to get. I mean, it's kind of is easy to get at this point where you hold it on an exchange. But when someone makes it super easy where you actually hold the keys yourself, that's when it'll really run away, I think. But regardless, it's on the climb, for sure.
Other than my student budget, that's the main thing keeping me from it, because I'm kind of a boomer in terms of technology. Not totally a boomer, but I have friends that'll mine for Bitcoin stuff, but I don't know about it. I don't know how to manage the tech stuff, so I just don't do it. But if somebody made some app, was like, yeah, Bitcoin or whatever, I'm pretty sure I'd get in it, and I think a lot of other people get in it too.
Yeah, basically, someone comes up with the Robinhood for Bitcoin, or Robinhood for cryptocurrency.
Although on Robinhood you can buy Bitcoin and some other altcoins.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's how I have some. It's fairly easy. You just buy. You have to buy a certain amount. It's a set minimum you have to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Set minimum as in dollar amount, set minimum as in coin amount?
In coins. Sorry, in coins amount.
No.
So, yeah, it's slowly going up and up and up. So I believe it's like 1,000th of a Bitcoin you have to buy.
Yeah, because any lower than that and the actual fee from buying it starts to eat into the actual transfer. Because Bitcoin, uses a little bit of a coin to make the transaction. That's not where Bitcoin comes from, but
although you can buy into like Ethereum, that's Facebook's
Ethereum,
altcoin,
Litecoin. Like there's other cryptocurrencies as well,
and they're kind of mirroring Bitcoin's track a little bit. They don't pay off as well in terms of holding them.
They tend to be tied to Bitcoin in the sense that people kind of judge their value or their price based on how Bitcoin is doing. Bitcoin is still like the market leader. But yeah, I'm happy to see this thing rolling. When I first found Bitcoin, it was $100.
Did you buy any?
I have a third of one.
Did you? Oh, nice.
Nice, yes.
So this is where I forgot my thought. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying like I did not dream it would be at this level. I honestly, when I saw it, I thought there was a good chance it would fail. I thought my theory at the time was this is a great idea for a technology, but there's going to be another coin that's going to be better because Bitcoin takes like 2 or 3 hours for a transaction to be secured, double checked if you pay like the normal fee. And so I thought, okay, something like Litecoin is going to be it because Litecoin checks it faster. So I didn't 100% buy into the Bitcoin phenomenon at that point because I figured it would rise up and then it would run into some issues and this other coin, whatever it would be, would take off. But apparently Bitcoin has the name recognition and the staying power where it seems to be the dominant coin for sure, you know? I remember Litecoin at the time was, I think, $2.50 per coin. Now it's at $232. So still a good return, not the same as Bitcoin, obviously, but it's been fascinating to watch. really fascinating. You know, there was back in when Bitcoin was like pennies per Bitcoin, someone bought a pizza for, I believe it was 10,000 Bitcoin.
Was that Bitcoin? Was that Doge?
No, it was Bitcoin.
Okay.
Someone bought a pizza for either 1,000 or 10,000 Bitcoin.
He's got to be kicking himself right now.
So that's like the most expensive pizza ever sold.
There's also the poor guy that's got like 2 password attempts left to recover his bitcoins. And it's like life-changing money or something.
There was a guy, he had like a couple hundred Bitcoin on his laptop hard drive, and he wound up throwing it away by accident. So it's in a landfill in New Jersey. And he identified what landfill it was. He couldn't find it. But they interviewed him for this article, and he was basically theorizing, yeah, if Bitcoin keeps going up, it could be economically viable to hire a mining company to come in here and mine the landfill to find this hard drive.
Provided that the data is still safe.
Right, there's a good chance it is, but think about it. If it's got 100 Bitcoin, that's $5 million right now. So,
wow,
that could truly work out to be economically workable to hire people to go in and dig up the landfill to find this hard drive. So, we're definitely seeing the maturation of like the next wave of financial technology, and it remains to be seen what impact this will have. There's already we're starting to see the beginnings of it, but it'll be interesting to see long term what it will be like. Very interesting times.
Yes. It's also interesting how Bitcoin, I'm speaking from ignorance on this, but it doesn't appear to be a physical thing that I can touch and hold and feel in my hands. Mm-hmm. And the way that our financial system has been moving towards that, as opposed to things that you can touch and feel, items, coins, even paper dollars or cash. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future. I remember I saw a video on Twitter in China. I mean, who knows if it's real or not, but vending machine, you had pay recognition based off of facial recognition. So this person was like, looking at the vending machine, and that's how they paid for their food.
Wow. Huh.
And it was just wild.
Yeah. That's one thing that I think is, helps pave the way for Bitcoin is people are already comfortable paying for things electronically. You send a lot of people send and receive a lot of money and never actually deal with the cash. So
Venmo and Cash App being the kind of the two big things.
So people are already comfortable with digital currency, and this is just an outgrowth of that in some ways. But yeah, we've got about 3 minutes left. Any parting thoughts, Will? It's been awesome having you on the show. This is your chance to speak to our many, many viewers of less than a dozen, probably.
I don't have any major thoughts at the moment, other than, law school is hard, but if you want to be a lawyer, don't be scared away from it just because it's hard. Like, still do it. Just make a good economical choice about it. Because you get a bunch of advice saying, always go, or, run away. I'd say just, make a good financial decision about it. If you want to be a lawyer, go, and it's going to be hard, but you're going to make it through to the end. I mean, I hadn't made it through to the end yet, but a bunch of other people have. So don't let people scare you about it.
Why?
And you don't have to go to some prestigious law firm or law school to become a lawyer.
Yes.
You can still, like I believe what saying was, what they call someone who went to night law school? A lawyer.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like any other form of higher education. You look at it as an investment. Will this pay off? Is it, what will it take to accomplish it? And then what is its return? And you weigh it and see if it's right for you. It'll be right for some people, won't be right for others, and that's great.
Don't take $500,000 in debt to go to American Samoa School of Law. But I don't know anything about it other than that's where that one guy went that, on that TV
Saul
show.
Goodman.
And that Michael Bloomberg won American Samoa, the more important thing. But,
Yes. Oh, I forgot about Michael Bloomberg's run. That was entertaining in a pitiful way.
Turns out money cannot buy you popularity.
He's like the poster child argument for why money isn't an automatic win in politics. You know what I mean? People say, "Oh, you can buy elections." Well, not entirely. It helps.
He
but
spent a lot of money per vote, if I remember the breakdown correctly.
He did. He'll be remembered, but not in the way he wanted to be remembered. You know,
Yes.
I'm thinking he was going to be the guy that comes in and saves everything, but now he's the butt of jokes about American Samoa and money not winning elections.
All right. Well, it's been a great hour. Thank you, Will, for coming on. We'll have to have you on again in the future. Yeah, covered a lot of ground. Wood finally got the sports conversation he's probably always wanted. But thank you all for
Yes,
listening.
it's like a nice little release. I can go back to reading
Yes.
more sports and more sports.
Thank you all for listening this week. We will be back next week. Hopefully, we'll see. Big homework assignment, but we'll see. Thank you all for listening, and have a great day.